Good, that should be enough power for everybody. Good evening all, and welcome to the BATC Q100 Net. This week I have Mike G0MJW, who will go first, followed by Jim G0DQH, then the other Jim G7NTG, Bernie G4HGAW, Rob M0DTS, Martin G4FKK, John G7JTT, Noel G8GTZ, Michelle HB9DUG, and Jules G0NZO. What's been going on this week? Well, most of the activity I've been engaged in has been DVB-T related. Good, the other station has gone down so people might be able to see me. Every Easter night I've been doing some trials with him running a GNU radio DVB-T encoder. I, in the last couple of days, have been giving the Portsdown 2020 some love and have managed to get it to do DVB-T from both a Lime SDR and a DATV Express. That's probably about a week away from release at the moment. There are quite a few wrinkles to iron out, but it will mean that those of you with Portsdown 2020s and Limes will be able to do, and DATV Expresses will be able to do DVB-T. That capability won't come to the Portsdown 4 for even longer. The other thing we've been working on is a revision of the band plan for Q100, prompted by a couple of things, but one of the major things is commercial music. We want to put in there explicit guidance that copyright commercial music should not be used on Q100, which seems to be a problem with some of our colleagues. There's also some provision for DVB-T, some clarification of 500 kilosymbols, 500 kilosymbols frequencies, and so on. So that's being staffed around the stakeholders at the moment. Anyway, we'll put it straight round to Mike, and I'll keep moving my lips even if I'm not in sync. So G0MJW to take it with the BATC Net from GHGKQ. So G0MJW BATC Net from GHGKQ.
Thanks, Dave. Let me just check I got audio. Yeah, I think. Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I must check it with different receivers. So the Ryde was way out a second or so, and yet Rob says the lip sync was fine on his receiver. So that's interesting. I'll be quick because I may well have to disappear very soon, but basically not been doing very much Q100 stuff, but I've been doing quite a bit of hacking, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a second because it's in front of me. So let me just get the camera, wobbly cam. Who knows what this is? A few people might, I don't know. Anyway, it's a hacker. It's a hacker sovereign, which is a transistor radio from 1967. Well, this thing here is a malachite, and this is this Russian SDR that everyone's been raving about, which actually works very well. It covers low frequencies to about 2 gigahertz. And mine came from eBay without a box. I've got one that I'm been messing around with. So what I have here is another Hacker Sovereign. The guts of it are back over there, and it's basically dead because there's no way to replace. It's got too many things wrong with it to be worth fixing. The buttons have all died and several other problems. All the tin whiskers on the transistors. So I thought, why don't I put this receiver in there? Got a lovely loudspeaker in it, very good tone. So that's what I've been doing. So I'm getting there. So I've been doing a bit of 3D printing and a bit of aluminium work. And let's see if I can hold this up. Maybe you can see that. I guess you get the idea. The bezel holds the malachite in it. This then all goes on the top, like so. Again, shaky cam, very shaky cam. And I've tried to arrange the dials so that it looks vaguely similar to what it did before. And then this goes in here. And with only one hand, it's a little bit difficult. So let me just put the camera down for a second. So that goes in there like that. And the whole lot goes on the top. And you have a modern Hacker Sovereign. So that's what I've been doing. Nothing really, nothing else really. Of course, most of the time is spent up doing work type things. Well, this I do have another radio. Here's another one.
Ryde from the new Tottenham Stadium, very close to the site.
So there's something going on, a football match by the sound of it. This one still works. This one, that is. And I had to change all the transistors in it, the tin whiskers problems, but it's working nicely. And they sound really, really good, these radios. Obviously not a hi-fi, but very good tone. Right, that's enough. Sorry for the extended over. Let me look at the list. G0GQH, I think it is. G0MJW.
Okay, just check that I've got audio. I have. Good. Good evening, everyone, from G0DQH. Sorry about last week. I had a few problems with receiving last week. A lot of the signals were down below 3, and my receiver just wasn't coping with it, I'm afraid. But Mo and I did some work on the dish yesterday. She shouted the numbers down from the shack on walkie-talkie, and I readjusted the dish down in the garden. So we did that, but I think the problem lay with water. There was water in the supposedly waterproof housing holding the LNB, so I took quite a bit out of there. So that's that. So tonight my signal is 6.8 at the moment, and all other signals tonight are 7+, so that's good. And Jim, G7NTG, I was looking at your clocks last week. You were quite a good signal with me, and I was able to pick you up. But if I may, I'd just like to bring this up. Now, this is a clock I built. I think my daughter was about 2 at the time, so it's coming up nearly 50 years old. I've replaced the main cap in it, and I've veneered the case myself, and it's teak veneered. It's getting a bit worn on the edge there, but it needs some teak oil. I've kept it all these years in a plastic box, and it still works, which is it's all built on Vero board inside. Might as well have a look at the shack while we've got the camera. There's the port stone. the old singing or dancing laptop that does everything, receive and transmit, the driver PAs, and the screen, the Windows 7 machine over there, that doesn't do very much. Certainly not used for anything to do with ATV. So that's that. If I can come back to the other screen, I'll get it right now. There we go. The other thing I wanted to mention, somebody else operates their station remotely. My shack is up in the study or third bedroom of the house. It's quite away from the dish, and I operate both the power on to the PA and the bias as well by fob. So if I can just show you that, that switches the power on to the PA. I can't touch it at the moment because it'll all disappear. And the bias is switched on and off by the other fob. All done remotely on 70 SEMS, and it works remarkably well. I have to hold the small fob out there sometimes when the battery starts running down, but other than that, it works fine. Okay, that's about it on this over from me, so I'll pass it back. And it's G7NTG, I believe, to take it from G0DQH. So I'll say good evening.
I just make sure I've got it and I've got sound before I knock off my sound, because otherwise we get echoes. Right, thank you, Jim. Yes, I like the look of that clock. That's very nice. And there you go. That's exactly what I use. That switches on my PA. The only difference is I just leave the PA and the PTT on all the time and just change the drive power. Nice radio mic. That looks excellent. Nice project. That makes a change, doesn't it? And then I'm going to ask a little question. I've had a couple of breakdowns, and both with the same guy, and I should be interested in any opinions on it. He had a big PA and vaporised the output track and burnt a big hole in the PA in the PCB, and so I thought, oh well, it's bound to get the old back to me. I changed the pallet and gave that a good hammering to make sure everything would work all right. Really took it well over the limit and really got it red hot and everything, and it was fine, absolutely perfect. He took that home, connected it up to his dish and vaporised the track again. So I think there's possibly something wrong with his feed line to the potty, or the potty that might be doing that. So I've done it again for him and he's gone back with it, and I've also fitted him out with a great big reel of Heliax and some plugs. So told him not to use the old one, but I wonder if it could have been the feed line doing that. That's the only problem I've had like that. They've not given me any bother. So I'm wondering if he's got something drastically wrong in the feed line. I'm not sure what could generate such high voltages. It's arc to cross down to earth. So weird that. So that's basically all that's been going on. I've got some more of these little pallets turned up. I've the guy, our friend in Poland, Dawid, had a load of these broken ones. They're all damaged. So I paid him for 5 of them, very, very cheap, just over 20 quid. And he sent me 8. He said, I'll send you some for organ donors. So that was very nice. I've got lots of spare parts. But I've got a feeling I might be able to get them all going. But we'll see. I like a challenge. Anyway, that's enough from me. I think I'll put it round to Bernie. So G4HJW from G7NTG. Over to you, Bernie.
Okay, right, I think I'm with you. Let's see. Yeah, it seems like it. Camera, action, there we go. All good. Yep, evening everyone. Yeah, I haven't been on for a few weeks with sort of coinciding with, well, not really with work, but I just don't really get back in time to be bothered setting everything up and what have you. It just sort of gets a bit late, so there we are. Yeah, I like your hacker, Mike. I thought you were going to come back with something really technical. What have you been hacking? But I'm with you now. I can remember our parents having a radio similar to that, but I'm not sure what the make was. Well, that's going back a long, long time. But it also had one of the, I don't recall it being one of the square batteries with springs on, but a bigger square battery, not a PP3, like quite a substantial amount bigger than that, but with the same terminals on the top. So maybe that rings some bells with someone. Yeah, the PA arcing out, that's interesting, Jim. Haven't experienced that one yet, but kind of imagine it's going into an open circuit, so it's not, if it was at a 50 ohm it would be keeping the voltages down. If it's an open circuit, the voltages are getting pretty high, but I don't know. Hopefully you won't get another one. PP7, oh, that could have been it, yeah. Okay. You'd think the isolator would protect it. This is true, yeah. But the isolator doesn't work as well when it's off frequency though, does it? So, could be something there. Yeah, well, so today, there we go. So I went to put the dish back on S-Hail today because I use the 3-metre dish for all sorts of different things. 23 sems narrowband, 23 sems TV, the deep space stuff on 8.4 gigs, and I've also been looking at some satellites on 2 gigs as well. So I've had various things set up for the dish, so generally every week I have to set it back up for S-Hail, which means just clagging a feed inside the other waveguide. But today I went to reposition the dish after parking it to back to its normal, well, back to S-Hail position, and well, I've got software in the shack which goes down serial cable, basically twisted pair down to the dish, and I loaded the software up on the PC here. It told me what position it was in. I pressed one of the buttons to move it, and that was the end of that. So, anyway, long story short, it's there's the H bridge. If I can get that to focus on there, you'll probably see the problem. If that comes through well enough, let's just double check RX1. Oh yeah, that comes through okay. So yeah, the smoke was let out a little bit on that track there, and also 2 of the H-bridge FETs have died as well. But the reason for that, if I can get this to focus in on shaky cam, if you see the resistor right near the end there, it's well, a bit of moisture's got at it, and well, basically it's not a 470 ohm resistor anymore, it's about 12 mega ohm or something like that. So that's probably been the cause of the failure up there. So that stalled us a little bit, but anyway, that happening caused some sort of spike to go back over, and I used a little Arduino Nano with my own custom bodged PWM driver firmware on there that reads all the encoders and everything, and then sends that data back to the shack and so forth. It took that out as well, so that's been living out there for about 4 years now, so it's not looking the best, but what a smell. You know what burnt PCBs like. So yeah, that was today's job basically. Other than that, I've been playing around with the 13 sems amp. I'll put something up for that afterwards. Yeah, the twin 160 device PA, which I'd mentioned I've been modding and things like that. Got that boxed up. I'll show you later anyway, but got it all boxed up and doing a lot of testing, switching it on and off, over temperature cut out and things like that, and after a certain period of time the output power disappeared. So anyway, basically the first driver stage, the little small black device, something in that circuit has died and basically catastrophic fail. So it took out the little fuse, it took out the DC-DC converter, and the device is total dead short. So not quite back to square one on that, but yeah, if anyone happens to have one of those devices handy, that would be useful. It's going to be a bit of a job changing it, but yeah, anyway, it's still, the rest of the amp is still perfectly functional, so there we go, but we'll go into that a bit after. So that's the story from this end anyway. Right. Okay, can't remember who it was round to now. Let me just scroll back up. That is round to Martin, FKK, M0DTS.
Yeah, okay. That's, oh blimey, that's a bit too much. It's very fiddly, the power control on this thing. Hang on. Keyboard out and nudge it down a bit. Right, anyway, yes, good evening all. It's G4FKK here, and all very interesting so far. I'll make it slightly less interesting by putting me on the picture. And yeah, so far everyone's been a good signal. I think I might struggle with you, John, later, G7JTT. I couldn't get you quite to lock earlier on when you were doing some tests. Okay, on your work on the Portsdown 2020, Dave, yeah, I've got a couple of Pi 3B pluses, so I might knock up another one of those. That'd be good. Mike, I was horrified. I mean, I was horrified enough last week when you said you were going to put a modern receiver in a proper old one, and then when you said it was a hacker, but it does sound as though it was beyond hope. So well done for doing that. We used to use hackers when I started at BBC Radio London many years ago. We used to use hackers for off-air queue for the presenters on outside broadcasts and things. They were really nice, reliable receivers, those were. And I've got a huge collection of new old stock AF117s, if anyone ever needs some of those. The ones I've tested, about 80% of them are good without the tin whiskers, and I have had some success blowing the tin whiskers off, but how long that'll last as a cure, I don't know. Jim DQH, excellent clock. I seem to remember building one of those many years ago, and that's still up in the loft somewhere. And I like the remote control as well. That's rather good. It's something I might do during the summer is shift all the gear that's currently in the shack, including the PA, which is right next to my left ear hole. That might get out in the garden. Jim NTG, I have managed to do that with the two device thing with the not so good transistors in, the D-type transistors. In my early modifications of that, I managed to create an arc which evaporated the output track and a great big hole in the board with it, and that was because I was just completely overdriving it. But I imagine you've checked what your guy's using to drive it. So other than that, I suspect it might well be SWR, particularly as you've bypassed the isolator. I've been doing that as well, so I need to be careful of that front. I'm glad you got the spare parts, though. They could be very useful. Bernie, sorry, I was only getting clicks from you, no audio, so something's up there. And I've not done much on the TV front either here, but I did get this going again today. This is my ICOM 756 Pro 3. I think I saw a picture. Someone's got one somewhere. A couple of weeks ago, the display started flickering, and then it died completely. And it's down to this small transformer here, which this cheap camera will not focus on. But basically, it's a transformer which is capable of generating over 1,000 volts, evidently from the data sheet, and it's used as the device to light up the backlight on the screen. So luckily, they're made by Toco, those little transformers, and they don't make them anymore. But luckily, Martin Lynch's workshop was able to source me one. So it was actually quite an easy fix. The most difficult bit was putting the radio back in its slot, because as you might have been able to see, it's covered with loads of old junk, and there's lots of wires behind it. So that was more difficult than actually taking it to bits and replacing that transformer. Right, that's probably enough from me, so I'll put it on to John. I might have to watch you on the streamer. I'm not sure I'll get you here, but we'll have a go. So G7 JTT to take it. G4 Fox Kilo Kilo. Over to you.
No audio. Right, it was turned down. Right, so what's been going on here? Thank you. A bit going on this week. Main project is trying to get going on 47 gigs, and I tweeted this picture earlier on. Which Colin was surprised at, because he said I never show an untidy shack, but I don't think that's true. I think that's unfair. Anyway, yeah, I've been doing 47 gigs. I've got a short video which will explain a little bit more, so I'll just play that. Seeing an LO from this box here, which is called a Naught SLO, and that runs at 12 to 40. So 12 gig, 12.24 gigahertz going into the LO port, and then I can drive that with 10 gigahertz or 3 centimeters, which is produced by this transverter, which is a home-built lash-up of a transverter from an old transverter that John JTT had. But that currently is producing about 15 milliwatts of 10 gigs there. So the 10 gigs and the 12 gigs local oscillator go into there and produce 47 gigs. 47 gigs comes across there and into an identical mixer, which is driven by another local oscillator, which is running at 11,600. 11 gigs, 11,600, and on the IF port obviously we've got a receive preamp, so it's a PGA 103 in that box there, which is producing an IF out, which is there for instance, but how I'm actually testing the system is I'm running 145 megs from my ports down there into the 10 gig transverter, and then on receive it's going up into my receive box and is producing or is driving the Ryde to produce the pictures. So I'm not sure if I can demonstrate this. Hang on, so if I go like, where is it? So if you watch the porch down screen, if you watch the Ryde screen, right, should be able to watch the Ryde screen now and watch me putting my hand down between the two 47 gig bits, and you will see that in the background the Ryde lost lock. And as soon as I take it off, it finds it again, which kind of proves that something's going on that's probably connected with 47 gigahertz. So there we have it. So yeah, so that was the tape I recorded earlier. Yeah, so that was the tape and here it is live. 247. I've tightened the bench up a bit for Colin's benefit, but he's not watching. So you've got the signal on the spectrum analyzer there. If I stick my hand in front of it, you'll see that it gets weaker and weaker. It does, should do. Quite a bit of RF flying around really, but I point them away. So I'm not sure what's going on. There we are, yeah. So there's quite a bit flying around actually. It's quite interesting. There's more than you think. So there we are. Got a way to go before it's fit for portable, but that's what we've been doing here. So all good fun. I'm sure I've been doing other things, but I can't think of what it was. But I've got a nice big Schroff case I'm about to cut in half to Just trying to think of the tidiest way to do it. Actually, it's a 9-inch rack case I bought, which is too deep, so I need to cut it in. I need to cut 100mm depth off it. Got it all in bits. I just need to. I think I invented a cure for coronavirus. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's good. Anyway, I don't need that because I'm having my jab tomorrow. So on that happy note, I'll hand it over to Michael. HB9DUG, G8GTs.
Oops. Okay, sorry for the wrong frequency. Okay, mute. Well, good evening all. From last week here, I've been testing the new version of different software that Dave and all the team have provided us. Mainly, I've been playing with the Porsche 4, with the DVB-T part, and also on the receiver part, the new add-on which I was looking for. So we are able to see the different program that we have on our HB9 TV repeaters. A very nice feature. Thank you very much, Dave. So regarding the DVB-T, so I've been playing with the Pluto, and it was nice. It works without problem. Only the things I've seen is that with my Pluto on the Ethernet over 1000 kilobit bandwidth with the 1000 symbol rate start to drop packets, I believe. So it works nicely. And unfortunately, I have only Ryde's receiver from the past, so I was not able to look at what I was transmitting. So installed on a Raspberry Pi a very nice image called Pi as SDR, which is really focusing at people using SDR hardware. So the image comes really with everything we need: GNU radio, all the drivers, all the modules for the Lime, for the Pluto, for the RTL keys, really everything. And the image works very, very nicely. So what I did quickly is to take the DVB-T GNU radio example is there in the files receiver, and I have added to it the Pluto source, so I was able to receive my transmission at 250 and 500 kilo symbol. So just nice little job, but it's really basic with no fancy things, and works on the bench. But to run it over long distance needs to be
better developed with filters and other things that basically the GRC file is not user friendly, so if you want to change the FEC or to change other parameters like the guard, you have to do it in a lot of different blocks. So it's okay on the bench, but I don't think it's very usable on the long run. So the development of the new tuner that BATC is doing is going to be a must for the coming months. So that's it. I'm going to give the mic to G0 November Zulu Oscar. Thank you, and I will shut down the things.
Right, evening all. That looks about right. Nice to hear what everyone's been up to. All sorts of interesting stuff. I've also got one of those old clocks. I think it was a Maplin kit. I made a box for it as well. Aluminium brushed front panel, and upgraded it with a medium wave radio. I've been busy building stuff, just for a change, I suppose. I've been working on a miniature Ryde for portable use. It has built-in audio, HDMI out, 12 volt DC in, ventilation holes, 5 volt fan, and it's a bit of a tight fit, but I enjoy doing that. I've been playing with these little ESP32 cams. I've got one with a fisheye lens, available from AliExpress and places like that for peanuts, and easy enough to stick on the home network. What else have I written down? I've got a I won't move the camera. I built a power supply monitor, just one of those cheap eBay volt and amp meters. I found an online manual for my TDK switch mode power supply, so I can now select two voltages, which I've preset 28 or 32, and it's showing me at the moment 31.8 and 10.5 amps. Whatever the power is, it's enough. Probably a little too high, but there we are. I've also had some PCBs. One or two of you have heard about these. These are really monoband amps, but it's designed for the MRF 300, and you can see the inductors are on the PCB, and you just add capacitors depending whether you want it for 6 meters, 4 meters, and it'll run over 300 watts on all of those bands. It wasn't what I had planned, but if anybody wants one of those PCBs, they're very cheap, and I'll happily send you that and the details. Okay, Rob, your dead pre-driver, well, the amp before this one, shall we say I was experimenting with it, trying to get more smoke out of it, and it did the same thing for me. It blew the little surface mount fuse. I replaced that with something a little bit bigger, which then blew up the whole DC switch mode power supply, and the little black driver chip was also dead. So I just bridged it, and I found that the AMSAT pre-filtered driver would still run the amp to full power. So you're just left with the first ceramic device and then the two main PAs, and it would do plenty of power. Right, Noel, I'd be interested if you have a good design for a -5, +5 and +9 power supply for powering microwave gear, i.e. sequenced, so that the -5 comes up first, or I can talk to you about that some other time. And I think that's probably about it. By my reckoning, it goes back to Dave. Since I've not written his call sign down, it'll have to be back to Dave. I know it's GH from G4.
I suppose I should have known it was coming to me, but as ever, caught me by surprise. Right, turn that down. Yeah, sorry that you're having problems, Jules. But thanks for joining us and watching, and we'll see you next week. Right, plenty of things to comment on. Lip sync. I've done some audio is very noisy these days. Yeah, I've got some earth loop problems, Rob. That's the major problem. Lip sync. It seems to be about right on most of the receivers in my shack within sort of half a second. DVB-T. Now that a number of us got active on DVB-T, don't forget that we've got the low band activity weekend, not this coming weekend, but the weekend after, so have a think about that. Don't do too much DVB-T on QO100. It does make those who can't receive it a little fed up. I hope I wasn't too sharp with Bernard F5DB earlier, who had 1 megahertz DVB-T on. We had a good chat about it afterwards, and I gather he's working with you, Michel. Yeah, adjusting the guard for DVB-T. Did some thinking about this, and a guard of 132 on 333 kilosymbols is equivalent to a guard of what I reckon it was 3/4 on 8 megs. So I'm not sure we're going to need to play with the guard very much, because it's all down to timing and bit rate. But we'll have a experiment with that. Construction-wise this week, I've built a box that does the streaming for the net. So in the box I've got an LKV373, dual HDMI splitter and a router, and I just turn that box on and tell the Raspberry Pi to send the stuff to the streamer, and that seems to work fairly well. And it saves me having wires between multiple things around the shack. Vaporized PCBs, yeah, I'm not sure why you quite need that much power, but perhaps it's just a feedback thing, and that happens. I know I've managed to give a very large pulse of power during feedback. Bernie, your audio was clicky and your video was very stuttery, so I think it might have been a general coding problem there. Some discussion on the chat about metadata, about call sign. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter whether your call sign is in the service or the provider field, sorry, the program or the provider field, if it's there. But I think a lot of people, it's more convenient if it's in the program field. So I think that's all I have. So do think about the low band contest coming up for a couple of weeks' time. Not this weekend, but the next weekend. And let's go back round to Mike. G0NJW and the net G8GKQ.
Right, you caught me by surprise there, Dave. I wasn't ready. Right, you caught me by surprise there, Dave. I wasn't ready. It's working, so that's good. I hadn't got the program run up. Yeah, thanks, Gareth. Funny enough, hang on, let me get a picture that actually means something. The 4 meter, 6 meter amplifier that Mike CUL's using at the moment failed a few weeks ago, and it uses an MRF151G, which are not really available anymore. And we were looking at solutions, and the MRF300 came up as a possible replacement candidate. So with one of those boards, that would work quite well. Actually. What else is needed on the board, but it would make a good, more modern replacement. And most of the gubbins within the amplifier can stay the same because the sizes wouldn't be too different. So I'll have to have a look at that. And yeah, okay. I'll send you an email. Right, okay. So what was I showing here? This is Rob's Wonder software that I mentioned. What it does is it auto-tunes the Winter Hill to whatever happens to appear on the transponder. And up to 4 receivers. At the moment it's trying to lock on 235 kilosymbol signals, which is not particularly helpful because it can't at the moment receive 35 kilosymbols. I think that's going to work. But it's now latched onto the 333, so it should show a picture or my signal. I mean, that's really amazing. If you want to monitor the satellite, you just leave that there and wait until something interesting turns up. So really good job, Rob's done there. Martin, no hackers were harmed during my hacking. The hacker Sovereign is actually a chassis inside the box. I've just taken it out. But I am going to actually make use of the antenna. But I'm not going to break it, so it's entirely reversible. But it was pretty much dead. So all original because the transistors have got the dreaded tin whiskers on them. And the switch matrix, whatever, 4 switches in a row. They're supposed to interact with each other and latch, and they don't. So it's not really repairable because that's due to wear. The little thing that moves up and down, I guess you'd call it a cam or something like that, is worn out. So it wasn't fixable. But the box is great. And the loudspeaker is good. I've tried it with the Malachite. It's the wrong impedance, but it still seems to work fine. It produces a lot of volume. So after the weekend, I will have that going. I happen to need some 6x6mm aluminium. Found some and discovered I can buy a 3 meter length of this rod for £13. That's fine, and that's with free postage. I'd be interested to see what the Royal Mail are going to do with 3 meter long length of 6x6mm aluminium rod. So I'm not all that hopeful, but you never know. We'll wait and see. Right, yes, satellite into mod. Good question. It could well be, yeah. Especially seeing as when one went down, they disappeared. Yeah, that's probably what it is. 32. Guard band, Dave. Yes, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. If we're doing that, that might be the difference. But unless we're going to do EME as well, perhaps it's not necessary. Which would be good if we stick to 32. But let's go for some standard and stick to it if we can. I don't know what the maximum delay spread you're likely to get on VHF is, or with sporadic key, but it could be quite long. So we do need to think about that. But I don't think it'll be that long. It won't be seconds. It'll be milliseconds or a few milliseconds, not much more than that. Okay, that's enough from me. So 7-3 everyone. It's been. Oh yeah, I'll go back to the video now. 7-3 everyone. Been great to see what everyone's been up to, and yes, hopefully everyone will have a good week, and we'll meet again next week. So with that, E0MJW has to get round to. Is it Burn? Ooh, good question. Who is it now? Not sure if it should be G0DQH James, but I'm not sure if he's still there.
Yes, I'm still here. I'll turn the volume down. Okay. Click up there. Now maybe see my own picture. Okay. Fine on the hacker, by the way. As I mentioned earlier, I bought one for £1. This 30 years ago, and built a little plus and minus supply inside. And my ex-wife still got it in Braunton in North Devon, and it still works fine. Someone else actually brought one into work a couple of years ago. I have to say we repair most things in our service department, but anyway, this thing came in, and I traced the wires through, and I suddenly realised that it's actually, although there were two 9-volt batteries, it actually works off of 18 volts. So I put a little socket on the back of the radio and supplied the guy with an 18 volt switch mode power supply, and to my knowledge it's still working to this day. Anyway, the other thing that I was going to mention, if I just bring up the other camera, here we go, and this is my radio, which is a valve portable, which, as you can hear, still works, but the PC is interfering with it. So it does work, medium and long wave. It's a 4-valve battery superhet, and it's dated inside at 1960, built in 1960. And there you go. I had to replace the B7G valve base in the DL94 output valve, and also the loudspeaker transformer just there. And I was lucky enough to get one off of eBay for £5. And it's the only one I've ever seen on there, so I was very lucky. As you can see, apart from the two 1.5 volt batteries in parallel to supply the filaments, there are a load of PP3 batteries in series. I think it's about 60 odd volts there at the moment, and it's supposed to work off 90, of course. So there you go. It's got a frame aerial in the lid, and just to prove that it does actually work on long wave, it does. But as I said, the PCs are interfering with it. So there you go. That switches off, of course, when you close the lid. So there you go. While I've got the camera out, there is the receiver, the SAT receiver, and I actually supply the LNB voltage. If I can turn around if you look in the corner there, you'll see there's a 14 volt switch mode power supply on the floor, and it lies on a heatsink just in case. It runs the LNB 24 hours a day. So, and when we were adjusting the dish yesterday, it was actually nice and warm. So there you go. Let's put that one back out of the way, and there you go. Okay, that's about it from me tonight, and so I'll say good evening. I've had my COVID jab, by the way. That was on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, and Mo, my wife, also had her jab at the same time. So we got power protection, but I'm pleased that's over and done with, and looking forward to the next ones, and try to get away on holiday or do something else rather than sit at home. As you probably know, I work 4 days a week part-time anyway for Expo in the service department, so that keeps me busy. Anyway, very good evening to everybody, and hopefully I'll see everybody again next week. This is G0DQH, location Chandler's Ford. It's about 5 miles just north of the city of St.
Right, just wait for the sound to come on. That's it, mute it. Right, yeah, thanks for that, James. I like that old valve radio, that's lovely. Sounds nice, portable radio. Yes, and I've had my vaccination yesterday, so I've still got the shivers and shakes at the moment, these mild flu symptoms, which not bad, they're just you can't get warm, and then all of a sudden you're sweating. But yeah. Okay, right. Yeah, thanks for the comments, especially from Martin. Yes, I think there's possibly an open circuit somewhere that's causing that. It's the only person who's had any problems with mine, who have reported they've had problems with mine, and everybody else has been okay. So I suspect it's a faulty feed line or a faulty adapter or something like that somewhere. So just have to play it by ear and see if any more do it. Rob, you said you'd got a power amp that had blown, and you were switching power. I tend to, when I'm doing testing, just power it up with the 32 volts and leave that on all the time. Never switch that off. I've found if you switch the power off while it's running, that can cause problems. You can switch the drive off, you can just abruptly turn off the drive power, and it doesn't matter, it doesn't bother with that. But occasionally if you switch the power off, it'll go bang. This amplifier I'm using now has been on all evening. I switch it on about 6:30 and it's on all the time with the PTT energised, so it doesn't cause it any problems. And I think Mike asked it, he seemed a bit surprised that I managed to get 300 watts through a potty. And yes, it's perfectly possible to do that. Before I had proper attenuators, when I was testing my first power amplifiers, the 250, 300 watt ones using the Amplion device, I was actually wanting something to test them with, so I hung a potty out of the window, fed with a directional coupler to measure the power. And yes, they handle 300 watts without any problem. Never had any bother with that. Not sure what would happen if they got wet and water all over them, but yeah. And I removed all the isolators, the ones in the smaller ones on the board. It's right on the edge of the band, and they're not very. There's a lot of losses in them. They lose a lot of power, and the output ones certainly won't take the sort of power levels that I'm pushing the things to. I like to test them to saturation and run them at saturation for a few minutes or more. Make sure everything's okay, and then I know that they're going to be fine in the linear region down in the sort of 50-60 watt range, which is where everybody needs for the satellite. So there we go. Anyway, that's enough from me, so I'm going to pass it on to Bernie. So I assume so anyway, just check. So I'm going to say 73s and lots of interesting comments tonight and lots of interesting things going on, especially the old radios, love them. So it's round to Bernie, G4HAW from G7NTG.
That's going to work this time. If you let me know on the text, I'll oh yes, okay. Well, I was doing something silly, simply because I'm using the analog camera now. Since you've got audio, yeah, thank you, Bert. I want to watch my own signal on the streamer, which is saying not locked yet. Oh, well, I better go back to so I can see the text. I was using the analog camera. I think it is giving me better pictures, but I have a question. Yeah, okay, it stops every now and again. That's fine, Martin. I have a question. As long as you're hearing the audio, I notice on my picture that the brilliance goes up and down as though there's a beat note with a main, remembering I'm using an analog camera. But what I see now is that there's two reflections on the window behind me from two different lights, and they're not in phase with that pumping of brilliance, if you like. So I'd be very interested to know if anybody knows what the explanation of that is, because that's completely confused. Oh, I see. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, I think that should be okay now. I'm really sorry. I'll just quickly say before I put it over. Yeah, I must keep an eye on the audio indicator. So I think that's come back again now. On the two lights that are reflecting off the back there. Yeah, okay. I'll say good night. I won't mess everybody around. I'll come out tomorrow and I'll monitor and see what's
My receive didn't jump into 16 by 9 there. Right. Where we at? That one. There we go. Ooh, didn't like that abrupt change there, did it? Yeah, so what other comments was there to make? I didn't write anything down that time. That was a mistake, wasn't it? Yeah, this was, I'm trying to think now, this was switching with RF, but not at a particularly high output level. I think we were running at about 20 watts or something like that out of the amp, so the drive into the first stage was pretty minimal really. But anyway, there we are. So yeah, I've got the amp built into this 2U box. It used to have a load of holes in the front for one of the analog receivers in KM. So that's where that box came from. The hole on the left was a signal meter. I've now put a little screen in there with power output and temperature and over temperature status and things like that. So if I'm using the C920-C camera here as well, which looks like it's working okay. So yeah, I've got the amp there, of course. The driver stage down here is the bit that's failed. The rest of it's working perfectly fine. So without that driver stage, I seem to be getting 36 dB of gain, which is still perfectly usable. I've got one of the MHL 21337, is it, or something like that devices, which I'm just going to drop into this gap here, and then that'll basically give us the drive I need to drive the rest of the amp. So we're okay, or I'll source another device for that stage and just bypass the 5-volt supply. But yeah, it was this. I think it was the switch mode supply that actually failed by powering on and off. But so yeah, we're using one of the FETs in there, which is like a 40 amp P channel MOSFET to switch the 28 volts onto the unit, so both the stages come on at the same time. I've got this little detector module, one of the analog devices detector modules that's coming off the feedback port there to monitor the power, so that's where I'm getting the power reading from. I've got a couple of wires hooked up there for the temperature sensor because it's got an LM75 temperature sensor inside the amp, so and that goes down to the Arduino in the bottom there with a bit of VeriBoard for various things. As usual, you start off with something. The regulator there for the 28 volts down to 5. I knew it was probably going to get quite warm, and it got a bit slightly too warm for a heatsink, so that ended up mounted on the side here. I didn't want to put yet another switching power supply in something. It's too easy to put in, but they also generate so much noise, so I've gone with the trusty LM317 in there. So yeah, the heatsink's there, and I've got 2 fans on the back that basically pull the air through the duct. That's sealed at the back there along the back panel, so it pulls the air in through the sides of the unit, probably the top as well. I don't know. I haven't really figured that out yet. I haven't got a cover for the top yet, so it'll probably pull the air into the sides, round there, and then back out the back. But when it's running, it seems to run at about 40 degrees. For running at 40 watts output continuous, it only gets up to 40 degrees, so that's good, because we were getting up to about 55, 60 before, so with the small heatsink. So yeah, it's working okay. A little screen on the front just to make it a little bit snazzy, but it's only for use in the van, the actual screen. When I use it for home, that'll be outdoors, out of the way anyway, but I built it so I can either use it at home or in the van, because it gives us enough power to use with the smaller dish for TV. So there we are. But yeah, the front panel needs doing yet. I've just got it sort of roughed down, ready for a coat there. Yeah, that's the mirror off the. So yeah, that's the camera. So that's your C920-C, and that's your regular C920. So there is quite a difference in them. The mirror's very dirty. That's the original mirror off the printer. So yeah, so there's the 2 different ones. But it seems to be probably the same hardware inside. Never looked, but there we are. Anything else? No, I don't think so. So that's it for me for this week, I think. On that camera at a weird angle. Right, so there we go. Anything else to add? Let's see. Okay, yeah, nothing to mention there. Dash C cheaper. I would imagine so. I've probably had that 5-6 years now. I bought it for portable work, so it's quite a long time ago. But yeah, that's a C920C, and then view the camcorder, which is going HDMI in with a nice quality picture in OBS. This is dead grainy. It's not very nice at all. So go back to the. Probably looks a bit darker, but that's on the HDMI camera going into OBS and things. But there we are. Right. Well, I think that's it for me for this week. We shall. I'll say 7-3. And hopefully have the amp working for next week, and should be transmitting on it next week, I would imagine. So we shall look forward to that. Right, 7-3 all, and pass it to Martin. G4FKK and 0DTS on the BATC Net. See you next week. Oh, right.
Okay, Rob. Very good. M0DTS, G4FKK, and the group returning. So yeah, all very interesting. And yeah, I've got to bag one of those boards, Gareth. But if you've got any left after everyone else has got them, I wouldn't mind playing with one of those. I was quite impressed with your 47 gigahertz, Noel, and particularly impressed when you were moving it around and it was still receiving it. You'll have to do the old Dud Charman aerial circus with that and find out what it's doing. Michelle, I'm quite interested in that image. I wonder where you got that image from for the. I think you called it PiOS SDR. That looked quite interesting. Oh, by the way, Dave, thanks for adding the service channels into the latest Portsdown 4 on the DVB-T. And like you, I found that the picture is completely rock steady on the Portsdown 4, but still a bit jittery on the Ryde. So that's interesting. But that could just be my HDMI cable or something. What was the other thing I wrote down? Oh yeah, while you were talking, Dave, I lost you completely because I thought, what on earth's that? And it was an enormous hammering rainstorm on my dish. Anyway, luckily that didn't last very long. Rob's Wonder software sounds great, Mike, and I'm glad that no hackers were harmed in the cause of modernisation. And yeah, I've got a KW2000A like that in the shed, which is without its case and various other bits, but could be put back together, drop of a hat. And my loft is full of old valve broadcast radios and valves too. So if anyone is short of things like DK94s or DL94s, Jim, I've got a few of those. Can't read my own writing. This is the main problem. And yeah, that was a nice radio you got there, Jim, the master radio job. And the other Jim, NTG, had your jab already. I'm sure you're all too young to have these jabs. Well, apparently I'm in group 7 or something before I got offered one. And yeah, Bernie, I did hear most of what you were saying, but it was in and out. But I think you were going to look into that. I wonder what size that OLED was. I assume it was an OLED on the front of your amplifier, Rob. And the other thing the new Portsdown software does is tells you what version of C920 you've got. And I've got one of the new ones with no H.264 encoder in it. The reason, by the way, Rob, I was asking about your motor, your H driver for the motors, was I'm working on a new project here. Well, it's a bit of an old project, making an automatic matching unit, but driving a roller coaster and a proper big capacitor with stepper motors. I've got a little video here of the test bed. This is when the inductances and capacitors were switched with relays, because it was much lower power, but I'm making a QRO job. Let's see if it works. So you can probably see it works quite well. Goes right down to 0, or 1 to 1. But I'm quite pleased with that, because I'm using I'm measuring the phase of the load and the magnitude of its impedance, and tuning it up using a Smith chart effectively in an Arduino. So it works quite well. Right, that's far too much for me, so I'm not too sure if John's going to be there, but next on my list is John. So if it's not John, then I guess it'll be Noel. So G7JTT, if you're there, John, G4FKK standing by for you.
Evening all. Good. Alright, interesting net. Lots of interesting stuff from everybody. Particularly like the hacker radio. Oh, it was pretty cool, John. Well done. Yeah, just on the Winter Hill thing. This is the board we're talking about, which we showed a little while ago. It's actually waiting for Brian to just get round to releasing the software formally. And I know I think he said he was retiring at the end of January, maybe end of March, end of February. But he was then going to release it, so he'll be in a position to support it. But we've got the boards in stock and everything's ready to go, so it's just a question of waiting for Brian to do that. So, and to your comment, Mike, yes, I know, that's what I built. If you can let me have the latest Gerbers, that'd be good, mate, because I do need to order some knucker PCBs, and we've got Chinese New Year in the way as well. Although PCB Way seem to imply that they're going to be working over Chinese New Year for PCB manufacture. But if you can let me have those Gerbers, I will then I'll order some of this and some more knuckers for when we get ready for when we get the tuners in. That would be good. Thank you very much. And as I say, well, as and when Brian gets around to releasing it, this one will be ready as well. Not sure there's too many other boards we need at the moment. I'll have to do a bit of a stock check. I'd almost like to say that the mini tuners have gone slower. We're probably telling 2 a week rather than 3 at the moment. Good. Okay. I think that's all from me. It is pushing on. It's turning into a 2-hour net rather than a 1-hour net. So I'll pass it on. What about the LNB supplies? Don't understand the question. Let's have a dialogue tomorrow, Mike. Right, Michelle, round to you. And interesting to hear about the Raspberry Pi SDR image, and also the OFDM or DVB-T in GNU Radio. The brain's gone. Right, round to you, Michelle. HB9DUG 8GTZ.
Okay. 1, 2. Well, not much for this second round. Well, I'm just using here the Porston 4 and monitoring, and I'm also able to send the stream to OBS, so it's really nice setup. Just a report on the new repeater for HB9 TV3. So the things are going well with my friend Pierre-André. So the rack is finished. We have one part. First one is the power supply, then is some empty space, and the next is the control system. We have a switch in it, and we have a microcontroller which allows us to monitor the relay, and then the next box is the DATV transmitter, and tuner is SR system boxes, so it's all digital, and the empty box is the amplifier for the 10 gig output. Okay, so that's all about for me tonight, and maybe I will show some GNU Radio stuff next time, and I encourage you to try the image for the Pi, because it's really working very well. Okay, so wish you all, I was trying to put the other camera, so I wish you all a nice evening, and to see you next week. And next one is G4 X80. the mic and the camera back to
Okay. Right, G4XAT from HB9AUG. So far 7 boards have been asked for, so what I'll do is work out the circuit diagrams. I mean, I've got copies of them. It's not my design. It's a board I spotted, and I got in touch with the clever chap who designed it, and he said, how many would I like? So I've got 20, and I want a few for myself, but the rest can go to benefit the community, which is great. Interesting net. Rob, I was just going to ask you how you did your power measuring. I've measured the RF out of the same or similar port on my amp, and I reckon I need to put a 6 dB attenuator in, otherwise I'll exceed the analog device's measuring device. That is at full beams on 1 mega symbols, which obviously I suppose you wouldn't generally use. But there's no point in having a gear if you don't want to, or you don't want to blow it up anyway. Right, so 7 PCBs asked for. High power into the potty. I suspect, I know nothing of these things, but I have read that if you go over 150 watts and you've got an LNB on the same potty, your LNB will develop selective deafness. So whilst it might be okay for TX only, if you've got a special LNB, I don't think that level of RF, whether it's on frequency or not, is a good idea, but I'm not an expert. It's just something I read on the www. So with that, good evening to you all, and thanks for the net. Round to you, Dave. G8GKQ from
G4XAT, G8GKQ. Okay, hopefully a bit less background noise. The issue I've got is a earth loop between my mic preamp and my USB mic dongle. And I've spent most of the last couple of overs whilst listening, looking for an isolation transformer, but not managed to find one. So that was the issue. Interesting to see the C920C there, Rob. Presumably it if Portstown reports it as a C910B with an H.264, it's therefore got the same USB identifier. As long as it's got the encoder in it, that's good. Well, another interesting net. Hope to see you all next week, but don't forget to try and get some gear on the air, probably from home, for the low band contest the weekend after next. Be good to have some 50 or 70 megs activity if we can. So, good night all. Thank you for coming up, and see you next week. G8GKQ closing the BATC net and open frequency.